Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Well, today this is a video I hoped I wouldn't have to make because it looks like we've had the failure of yet another small energy company in the UK and we're all going to pay for it. So back in April, I put out a video about how Tomato Energy was showing some signs that all wasn't good within their business. And we went through a number of court filings where HMRC threatened to take them to court for non-payment of tax bills. Some creditors were looking to be paid. And this was an on and off situation. And my recommendation to everybody at the time was do not get left holding the can when this company goes down. Now, one thing I should say, as an energy customer, you won't suddenly lose electricity to your house. So if you are a Tomato Energy customer, you're not suddenly going to see the lights go out. There are provisions within Ofgem's rules and licensing for you to be transferred to another customer with uninterrupted supply. So you don't need to worry about that. So let's take a step back, because in the last couple of days, there have been a few things that, if they're not ringing the warning bells right now, really should be. So on the 26th of September, Ofgem issued a provisional order that said that Tomato Energy was no longer in compliance with its license agreement and was giving them 90 days to resolve it, otherwise they would seek to withdraw their energy provider's license. Now, you would think at that point, that would be the sort of final klaxon for Tomato to get their house in order. But just a few days later, with the courts in London, they filed their intention to appoint administrators. Now, this is the final warning. If you are a Tomato Energy customer, you need to act now before you end up being swept up in what is called the supplier of last resort. Now, I'm not here to say I told you so or anything like that. This is purely a public service announcement to say act now before it's too late. So this all happened pretty fast. As I say, Ofgem's provisional order was published on the Ofgem website, citing unpaid industry charges and license breaches. And within a couple of days, Tomato decided that the best way forward for them was to appoint administrators. If anybody wants to look this up, this is case CR 2025-LDS, that's Lima Delta Sierra 001032. Now, for anyone who's been following along, Tomato hasn't been accepting new customers for a long time. So it's not like they've been continually adding customers to their base while all this has been going on. So they actually ceased taking on new customers many months ago now. But it seems like they haven't been able to get on top of the requirements for their license from Ofgem. And we're starting to now see news reporting on this across a number of different websites, which I'll link below. So what does this mean for Tomato Energy customers? Well, let's make one thing really clear. Administrators are not appointed to help customers. The administrator has no interest in any issues that you might have with Tomato. Unless you are a creditor of that company, that means that they owe you money. And there may be some people who are owed a little bit of money by Tomato, but you will be so far down the pecking order, the administrator is not going to be on your side. The administrator is there to basically bring about one of three outcomes. They will take control of the business. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the existing management team is all going to be fired. They may be kept on, but in a very limited role. So the administrator takes control of the business, and the plan is then to seek its sale as a going concern. So they will look at everything to do with the business. They will look at it and say, can we sell this as a business to somebody to recoup some of the money that is owed to the creditors? If they can't do that, their next course of action is to seek the best possible outcome for creditors. And that usually means if the business is not a going concern, that they would then liquidate the assets of that company, sell them all off, and then basically pay the creditors some of what they are owed. So as a customer, the administrator is not your friend. Now, once the company goes into administration, if the administrator then decides that this is not a going concern, they will then ask Ofgem to assign all of the customers to a supplier of last resort. That means you as a tomato customer will get assigned to another energy company. Now, depending on who you speak to, this can be a really simple process. I've heard of some people who have been through this where this was all wrapped up in 1 to 2 weeks. And I've also heard from people this has taken 3 to 6 months. The problem with this is that if you went to Tomato Energy, I'm going to make the guess that you went there because of their low energy prices. When you get transferred to your new supplier under the supplier of last resort rules, you will get placed onto a standard tariff. So if you are an EV owner, if you do have a heat pump, you are a large energy user and you've been used to buying your energy at maybe 6.5 pence per kilowatt hour overnight and storing it in batteries, you might find yourself paying nearly 30 pence or even more for a kilowatt hour under the supplier of last resort rules. Now, it may already be too late for you to switch, but if you're listening to this video and it's any time around about the 20th of October, I would move now. I would move today. I would start that process. I would get out from underneath the administrator as quick as you possibly could. Now, I'm not here to tell you to switch to Eon or Octopus or any of the others. You do what is right for you. But please, please, please don't leave it until you get put on to the supplier of last resort. Otherwise, you're going to see your bills go up massively. There may be exit fees, but I think it would be very unlikely for Tomato to try and charge these given their current situation. So let's take a step back for a minute and look at the bigger picture, because for those of us that are not Tomato Energy customers, we're still going to have to pay for this mess. The way this happens is when a company fails, their debts just don't disappear. All of the money that is owed to them gets picked up by other companies, but there are costs. If you're Octopus or Eon or EDF and you suddenly have to take on a whole load of new customers, you then have to go and buy energy to fulfill those customers' requirements. And you haven't been able to plan ahead to basically hedge the energy market to get it at a low cost. So you're going to be buying energy at the market rate. And those costs are going to get heaped onto our standing charges. Now, we always complain about our standing charges going up, but one of the major components that drives up our standing charges are these small energy companies that continue to fail, who are not being operated properly and not being administered by Ofgem properly, are failing, and we're left to pick up the pieces. This means that the directors of these companies often get to walk away without a stain on their name. Before you know it, they're being appointed to the boards of new companies, starting new ventures, and we're the ones that are picking up the bills for their mismanagement of companies. Ofgem need to get on top of this. This is happening way too often. Way too many of these small companies are being granted licenses when they have no plan. They have no way that they're going to compete with some of the larger companies, and we're going to be left to pick up the bill later. So really, what I'm calling for here is Ofgem and the government to stop this cycle of failure. They make it too easy for small companies to try their hand, to chase these low prices, thinking, well, we can build a customer base and we can make some money out of this. And it's consumers that are left to pick up the pieces every single time. Regulators need to toughen up, and I think we need bans. If you're a director of a company that fails in this way, that has to bring in administrators, you should not be allowed to start another company. There need to be protections for the consumers. So if you're still with Tomato Energy, switch now, today. Do not get sucked into those higher bills. Today is the 20th of October as I'm recording this. Start the process today. Please, please, please share this with others who may be Tomato Energy customers, because they may be unaware of what's happening. It seems that the major way that Tomato communicates is through a Facebook group. If you're not on Facebook, as an awful lot of people aren't, then they may not know that this is happening. We all deserve a fair, stable energy market, and Ofgem and the government ministers need to get on top of this and stop this from happening. That's it for today's video. I hope this has been informative. I hope if you are a Tomato Energy customer that you're able to get yourself onto a new provider before you get put onto the supplier of last resort. With that, it just remains for me to thank you for clicking on this video. I hope you found it useful, and if I'm lucky, I will see you back here real soon for another video. Take care. Bye.